gamers, my name is Duma and welcome to the Game Room. Today we have a capital B banger for you with the update to the Scuff Sork that just hit Arc 10 solo on stream. This has been my absolute favorite archive build since the original was created. It's just totally different from everything else, and with the introduction of Scribing, it took the build to the next level and somehow got even more fun to play. It's primarily a shock damage build where lightning is exploding out of your body nonstop, deleting everything around you, and the build has some interesting connections between sets, skills, and scribing scripts some of you may be interested in as well. Also, something kind of awesome, this thing hit Arc 8 in just 3 hours and 12 minutes, which I don't think I've experienced that before with One Bar. A quick note to those headed straight to the gear screenshot and then headed out, there's some nuances, specifically with abilities and upper arcs to make this work that are very important. I would also suggest checking out the skill section of the video, specifically where I discuss the different scribing skills we use in different situations. I also streamed the Arc 8 to Arc 10 push, and I have that VOD published for you, which I'll also link in the description here if you want to see some of the higher art gameplay from the build. I'll also go over some tips and tricks to make the build work during the ability section of the video for you as well. I'm going to be going over this quick, but the written guide is up and available for you now over at thegameroom.tv. Let's get it. For this build, Nord is ideal. However, you can accommodate it really for any race. As you can see here, I'm an Imperial from PvP. We have all 64 points in health, using the Lover Mundus and Bear Haunch food with tripods as your potions. For gear, we're bringing something that may be a little different for some of you to the table with the Storm Curse set. It has a line of penetration, which is very helpful, but we're mainly after the 5 set here, which has a 15% chance when you deal shock damage to proc even more shock damage to the primary target and 2 nearby targets. We then pair that with the Heartland set, which is probably no surprise to most of you here, with it being one of the most reliable status effect generators in the archive, increasing our charged weapon trait to 470% increased chance to apply status effects, taking all that shock damage we're pumping out and adding great concussion status effect damage as well. Both of those together look like this. This is min-maxed for non-Nords. I'll show you the Nord changes at the end of this part, as well as some early arc suggestions to speed that up for you as well. It's fairly rigid where the pieces need to go, so there isn't a lot of freedom to move things around in order to ensure that you hit the resist cap, which is necessary. We have the Storm Cursed on the belt, jewelry, and staff, with Heartland around it on the body, and a monster set with a line of armor, with Oakensoul giving us all of our necessary buffs. All armor is in heavyweight with mostly reinforced traits, with 1 Nirnhone on the glove, and you're free to go Divines on the Storm Cursed belt for more penetration. All of those pieces are tri-enchanted as well. You need double protective traits on jewelry, with a third being healthy, with all 3 pieces having the increased magical harm and chance. Last, you want an ice staff with a charged trait and poison enchant. The poison enchant is going to end up being quite a lot of damage later on in the archive. CP is here for you as well. Everything is the same there as my other IA builds, with the exception of Reaving Blows, which is quite significant, and I'll go over here shortly with you when we get to abilities. For Nords, you can make all 3 jewelry pieces healthy and then use a heavy monster set with a line of penetration like Krogs. For early arcs, you want to drop your Heartland set, which isn't doing a ton until you get your first Focus Efforts vision. And then you gotta try out the Overwhelming Surge set. This makes early arcs pure chaos. It shoots shock damage from your character's body to enemies around you and restores magicka for a portion of the damage dealt. So not only does it add more shock damage, but it allows lots of continuous spam of your main shock abilities. Also, you definitely want a lightning staff as well for early arcs. This will be a very notable step up in damage for that area for you. I've personally picked up a second set of jewelry as well, which I run in all arcane or infused for more damage, and then any monster set helm you like in any weight really with a line of penetration, just whatever you have available. You can extend that early damage out further by running DPS food like Ghastly Eyeballs, which I highly suggest, and then these early arc DPS CP slottables. Next is abilities. Huge word of caution. Right now, until the next patch, I believe, there is a bug in the archive with many things being considered a pet. This applies to just about everything that summons an additional thing to fight with you or for you. This can be the rat that you step on that explodes, and even the eyeball that you summon to tank for you, and everything in between. Most notably, the new vision that grants you the permanent pet that buffs you. Do not get that vision until the next patch on this build. This bug 100% breaks this build entirely. I had a run where I was in Arc 8-4 and basically had to end it. So avoid all things pet related for now and you'll be fine. First up, we have Hardened Ward, one of the best shields in the game. It has a huge tooltip for the shield and a moderate heal at the same time. I'm going to come back to this in just a moment. There's some unique ways we can use this to more or less completely shut down hard mechanics and hard heavies from marauders and such. A note here, any active pet will disable the heal, which is part of the bug I was talking about before. Next, we have Healing Contingency, my favorite defensive ability in the game when used in the way I use it with the scripts that I use. Y'all are probably definitely sick of me talking about this at this point, so I'm going to link this video here for you and put it in the description. This video goes over some of the nuances of the ability that is not super evident on the tooltip. I cannot recommend enough that if this is new for you, that you check this video out. It will almost certainly elevate your play, especially in solo PvE content and PvP, and even more so on one bar builds. We're going to come back to the spammable at the end, as it's part of the entire engine of the build with the longest explanation. Next, we have entropy. This is very valuable in higher arcs. You place this on as many targets as you feel necessary, and it ticks damage on the target for 22 seconds, which is a very long time. Can proc the overcharge status effect for you for even more damage, and most importantly, each use of this also heals you for the entire duration. So you scale up your healing as needed by applying this to more enemies. Very impactful in upper arcs. Next, we have elemental susceptibility. This is used to debuff targets with major breach, as well as spread the burning status effect around. Last, we have the vampire ulti. Ridiculously good in higher arcs. It more or less gives you immortality for the duration, increasing your health by 10,000, heals you for 17% of the damage you do, and bats swim around you dealing major damage. Pop this on wave 3 of stages after you have spread Elisus and entropy around with grouped up mobs and just AoE spam burn them down. Okay, the final piece, which is the biggest piece, are spammable. I spent quite a lot of time evaluating my deaths in higher arcs and seeing what we can do to make that happen less. I feel I have this in a great sweet spot that works really, really well in all scenarios. Bosses, marauders, Thoat shards, all of it. We have two spammables that we use back and forth. The first one is Shocking Burst, which is what I would call our primary spammable. With these scripts here, this ability blasts shock damage around you, interrupts anything casting around you. So those annoying Thoat shards that spawn after Arc 4 you have to keep interrupting, you don't have to do that anymore. This will interrupt everything around you all of the time. You don't have to target anything specifically and manually interrupt it. And then the big one, the class script. When you have no pet active, this deals shock damage to enemies around you. This is also one of the things that will bug out if you have anything that is classified as a permanent pet right now. So let's piece that together now. We have the ability, which blasts shock damage around, the class script, which also blasts shock damage around you, and then we have the Storm Curse set, giving all of that a 15% chance to proc even more shock damage. With one single button, nothing else used, this is what that craziness looks like. Now imagine that with some focused efforts also proccing concussion damage. It gets really nutty really quick. And then you add your vampire ulti to the mix. Forget it, dude. Get them out of here. It's over with. Before we go any further, let's put what we have together. When rounds start, Elisus what you can, get some entropy out, get contingency rolling, maybe pop a shield, get in there and get busy with shock spam. Also, try light weaving everything you can all of the time, because that is what's going to be spreading the poison status effect around as well from your weapon enchant. And even without Serpent's Disdain extending that, it ends up being a very notable damage source and one of the top damage sources for single target things. Next, on every boss and at the start of new arcs until the Marauder is dead, we swap out this spammable for Wield Soul with these scripts here. So shock and class scripts again, and then the vitality for the third script, which is going to increase our heal and shield strength by 12%, which is huge. The class script on this ability is slightly different. Rather than pumping out shock damage around you, it does it around the target hit by the ability. So you can play with range from this spammable, kite if needed, and still get all of your shock, splash, and shock procking damage razzle dazzle. I've tried many different ways to deal with tough marauders and bosses, and this little change here ended up being very impactful. The build plays the same with the spammable. Everything works the same, except now we don't have the AoE interrupt, but we gain major vitality, and we can kite while maintaining damage if needed. Major vitality is the key here. As long as you're doing damage, major vitality is rolling on you. So that means beefier heals and shields. At this point, you need to be aware of the Destro Staff passive Trifocus, which says on every heavy attack, we gain a large damage shield. The very specific way I use this is Ice Staff heavy attack immediately into Harden Ward and block. That looks like this. You can see here, this doubles our effective health with 41k in shielding before any archive buffs to max health and shielding, which both increases this further, plus the block mitigation. Here's that in action on the Arc 7 Minotaur Marauder, and you can see how easily that shrugged off all of the heavy attack burst with no problem. Extending this clip out just a bit further, that's followed by what I've shown you before with the contingency dodge roll, topping our health off and an iframe. You aren't going to be in the position to always be able to dodge roll in general, so having this tactic available really shuts down quite a lot of hard mechanics and hits in the archive. For example, on the dragon boss of Thoat during the breath stage, you can 100% shut down all of that by channeling heavies into hardened wards, as you can see here. There's lots of ways that you can use this tactic. As soon as the Marauder is dead for the arc, swap Shock Soul for Shock Blast. So again, Shocking Burst is your primary add stage spammable, and Shocking Soul is your spammable for bosses and the start of new stage stages until the Marauder is dead. Just something to be aware of, starting in Arc 4 and above until the Marauders are dead for the arc, you will have to manually interrupt the Thoat shards if you get those, as we don't equip Shock Burst until after the Marauder has spawned. In upper arcs, there's a flow you get into of spreading a bit of Elisus burning, topping off health and shields, and then Shock Burst spam, back off, and repeat. You can't just sit there and face tank everything one button spamming Shock Burst. I encourage you to check out some of the Arc 8 to 10 push I have in the video description for you to see some of that in action. That's going to be much better for you than me trying to demonstrate that here on dummies that don't move. For early arcs, very simple changes here. We bring in Lightning Flood, which is a great shock damage source, and it will also be the primary activation for the Overwhelming Surge set if you choose to do that, and Unstable Ellie Wall. Drop both of these on enemies and spam Shock Burst. Things shouldn't last more than a couple of globals. For ultimate, we cannot use Charge Atro right now due to the bugs I told you about before, so I've just been using the Destra ulti with the Lightning Staff. It works great. Important here, please pay attention to this part. At the start of Arc 2 and 3, you need to be ready for Marauders so you don't waste a death. If you went the full early arc modified setup, you need to change a few things until the Marauder is dead to ensure your safety. 1. Bring back Hardened Ward. 2. Bring back Entropy. 3. Bring back Vampire Ult. 4. Use Shocking Soul. 5. Slot the Ironclad blue slottable in any spot but Reaving Blows. And 6. Bring back the Ice Staff. That's a bit overkill for Arc 2 Marauders, but right there in the sweet spot for Arc 3. At the start of Arc 4, you should be in the full final in-game version of the setup, and then nothing changes but spammable swapping. And boom, that's it, gamers. This one honestly is crazy fun. I personally enjoy it quite a lot. If you try it out, I really hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a wonderful day.